10,000 Tears podcast. With us today, we got back Devin and Mitch, Noah, Michael, Justin, and myself, Isaac, recapping the game today between the Minnesota Vikings and Chicago Bears. Got plenty on that later. But first, let's go over our predictions from last week. I was the only one to predict the Bears to win, so I will take that victory, boys. Thank you. Don't know why you all have so much faith in the Minnesota Vikings to win at home against the Bears with no fans, whatever. Mitchell Trubisky for MVP. Thank you.
All right,
Well, he looked like one tonight, the way the defense made him look.
Yeah, brutal showing today.
Send that defense to Ram Ranch.
Takes a truly special performance from a defense to make Mitchell Trubisky look like he's had a great game, and they certainly accomplished that tonight.
and I don't think it was a great game. I thought that was like an average quarterback game. It wasn't an insane game. He only had 200 passing yards. That's not great.
I would agree with you
He
there.
didn't do much. So.
But for Trubisky, that's
Yeah, for him, yes, that's a great game for him. But I ain't talking about that.
Get into the game a little more. So the Minnesota Vikings were defeated by the Chicago Bears, 33-27. Pretty much an even matchup. It seems like from the beginning, went back and forth. Just, let's get your thoughts on it first.
Justin, you there?
Yeah.
Texting the girlfriend. Texting the wife, my bad. I'm
The fiance.
The wifey. The
Okay.
fiance, that's right, yes.
No, just still a little bummed after that game. It was I thought the Bears were definitely a team that we should have at least handled. But that knocks us off for the season, and
Not yet, mathematically.
well,
We need some help.
long,
Hurts is giving us some help right now.
I suppose.
But
Here's the problem I have. Honestly, it seems like whenever we have one part of the team working, i.e. Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Conklin, everyone on the offense pretty much besides Kirk, they're all working in unison. And then now we have Kirk Cousins working on himself, and he's doing great, and everyone else is like failing. Dalvin's still doing his thing, obviously, but it seems like we can never have everyone firing on all cylinders, at the same time. It's a big problem.
I mean, Jefferson had over 100 yards today. Thielen, while his receiving production
11
wasn't
yards?
quite there. Yeah, 11 yards,
11
but he
yards
still
tonight.
got the snag for the TD. So, I mean,
Yeah.
He was only targeted 3 times, while Justin Jefferson was targeted 11 times.
Dalvin Cook
with that kind of
contributed
ball,
too
yeah.
with the 132 yards on the ground.
All right. What's your guys' take on that fourth down attempt we had at the end of the game there? With that play call.
Brutal.
Ugh.
Just dumb.
In my notes, I wrote this. Let's see here. Awful zone play action quarterback rollout play on 4th and 1. They had a defensive end, Urban, who was the guy that ran at Kirk Cousins. They did a whole zone to the left, zone block, so they were trying to make everyone crash in on the right side on the defense. And when Kirk rolled back around, Urban was right in his face already. So we had Jefferson in a short little slant route, shallow slant across the middle. He was wide open because there's a 6'7" defensive end in his face. He couldn't see him. So he did what he could, try to extend the play and just throw it up. But I don't understand that play call when you have a defensive end uncovered and he's clearly going to keep contained. So he's going to stay on that one side. I didn't understand that play call whatsoever.
I think maybe like playing devil's advocate here. I think just because Dalvin had gotten stopped on a lot of those 3rd and 1s and he was not getting anything in the tough game there, I think maybe that had to go into their decision, but I still agree it was not a great call.
No, we had to stick with Dalvin. Like, he is our offense. He's the best player on our offense. We had to, just like with the Seahawks and Marshawn Lynch in the Super Bowl, they didn't run it, and everybody's like they should have ran it, and that's what it is right now. We should have ran it right there. Just trusted Dalvin to just plow through, which is he does a lot, and just for 1 yard, he normally gets 2-3 yards on most of his carries anyways. He averaged 5.5 this game. Just needed one.
Sure.
In all honesty, our defense shouldn't have even put us in that position. Just the play all game. If Mitchell Trubisky's going to be throwing all over you, the fact that they couldn't contain him back in that pocket, he was able to roll out and do whatever he wanted. Gave him all the time in the world to make throws when he needed to. Like, they made one play all game. That was Cam Dantzler's pick in the end zone.
Yeah.
And that was just a stupid throw by Mitchell Trubisky. You think the Vikings would be all hyped up to go drive down the field.
They forced the Bears to punt twice all game. They either got a field goal or touchdown every single drive they had. So
I'll say I wrote down before the game started. Another aspect is I wrote two things down that I wanted to see today from the Vikings. Just random things. Is one thing was Montgomery has been doing really well lately, and I think that we did not do anything to stop him at all. In that factor, I mean, he had 146 rushing yards, just tore us apart. And the other thing I wrote down
30 times.
Yeah, a lot of carries. But the other thing I wrote down was Cam Dantzler needs another good game to momentum, and I think he did that.
I mean, he was one of the few bright spots we had on defense.
For sure. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of him.
If not one of the only. But you kind of got to chalk it up as in the narrative, too, with the entire team's persona throughout the year. I mean, we've had about 7 rookies starting on our defense majority of the year. So, I mean, I give them credit for the fact in their youth and inexperience in being able to keep the majority of our games as close as they have. As frustrating as it is to take the losses, we theoretically and on paper, with them being rookies and as inexperienced as they are in the league and against the caliber of teams we've been playing, Tampa Bay, Seattle, I mean, you name it, we should theoretically have been getting shit on with the defense that we have, in their state. So I'll give them credit and at least the fact of keeping us somewhat in majority of our games. And I have a high hope for, going forward, especially with our, secondary core. That's one of those positions where, you see the talent in college and you pick them. And then from there's really no preparing from the college to the NFL aspect when you got guys like Tyreek Hill or just have that insane speed gauge where cornerbacks, they're just going to get better as you give them more reps. And there's really, no in between like that. All your big name corners, they weren't stars off of their year one, give or take, besides, a handful. You got look at guys like who was Washington. Yeah, exactly. Like they didn't really emerge until like their second, third, sometimes even fourth year, really. So, that's just one of those things you kind of just got to chalk it up and kind of give it to them, unfortunately. As frustrating as it is with our offense in their current state, it's just like, damn it, they get 1 or 2 plays to squeeze out of the game to save us. And, 3 or 4 of our losses could have very easily been a win. So.
Yeah, it's a very developmental position. So I agree with you there. And I think going forward, we should only improve.
Definitely have a bright future with these young guys out at the secondary. They got a lot of room to grow, and Dantzler, looks like he's got a high bar that he can reach to, and hope to see him get at least there in the next 2 years. Well, we still got a good core on offense.
And we get Danielle Hunter back next year as well.
And Michael Pierce and Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr. I still think Danielle Hunter might get traded.
We kind of touched on that in the last episode. You weren't there, Devin, but we're talking about how Daniil Hunter, there's rumors going around about how he's requesting to be the highest paid defensive lineman in the NFL, and we might not be able to do that.
Even though he has multiple years left on his deal.
That's a big ask.
It is, especially coming off an entire year of him not playing. I don't think that's something that he's deserving of. I mean, yes, obviously the performance is there, like from season past, and the potential is there for him to, continue and thrive off of that. But with an entire year off, I mean, you really don't know what the bounce back is going to look like. So yeah, for him to ask that, I mean, that's just unfortunate for our position to I don't see any reason why our front office would agree to any kind of terms like that. It's like, hey, dude, you took a year off. You got to earn your stripes back. Give us a good season and, put your name back on the map again. And then after a solid season of output similar to what he had prior, yeah, pay the man. But I don't think he's deserving of that with an entire year off, injury or not, whatever the circumstances.
And if we can move him possibly for more assets, I mean, this whole defensive front right now, starting with, Ifedi, I don't think he's going to be here next year. I wouldn't give him a long-term contract the way he's been playing. I mean, nobody up front right now has screamed, hey, let's try to, develop them a little further. Because I feel like we've reached the point with Jalen Johnson and Shamar Stephen that we found out who they are. They're, low-tier defensive tackles. And I mean, it just proves today that with Mitchell Trubisky and all season pretty much, we've made terrible quarterbacks look good, just giving them a ton of time in the pocket.
Yeah, that was actually the first note that I took during the game was we're putting no pressure on the quarterback again.
We had 1 sack, and it was a linebacker, Todd Davis, who had a pretty good game.
I'd say the worst thing on defense we had this week was yards after contact, because we were getting to David Montgomery within a yard or two of the line of scrimmage, yet he was still able to get another 5-6 yards a lot of the time. So we just got to get our tackles just got to get the tackles down.
A lot of those missed tackles, because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I made note of that as well. Is it's a lot of those missed tackles are coming from our secondaries, and they're not wrapping up. Like I literally was just screaming at my TV, like wrap up, like literally shit that we learned in playing middle school football, like basic tackling fundamentals. And these guys are running at them scared, is what it looks like in my eyes. Like they're running at them with like their arms out, and they're just trying to get like a piece of them with their wrap them up in their elbow and take them down, like. Dude, this guy's running full speed off the line of scrimmage. Like, that's not going to cut it. So why?
And it's not like he's Derrick Henry out there, an actual 2-ton wrecking ball just coming barreling at you at 30 miles an hour. I mean, yeah, he's not a small guy by any means, but still, it's not.
He just wore down the defense, man. He just wore him down with 32 carries. Just play after play, he's just running right in there. Averaging 4.6 yards a carry. That's average. It's nothing spectacular.
We knew
long of 19 yards.
We knew that coming into the game that he's kind of been on a hot streak, especially with them, shying away from Nick Foles and, the passing game. So he was going to get his touches. And he has a ton of, I think he's second in the NFL behind Dalvin with broken tackles. So he has that ability. And we knew that coming in. And still, the second level, I feel like also we miss Kendrick so much. He's such an important key to this defense that he's like that leader. He's going to get his tackles, and we desperately needed that. As I said, Todd Davis had a pretty good game. Troy Dye did not have a good game. Eric Wilson, he made tackles, but he was kind of a reserve tackler. He made secondary tackles. So we really need someone up front that can stuff those lanes, and then somebody to come in and clean it up. And we just don't have that currently at this current state of the Vikings. So.
We just got to really figure that out before next week, especially going up against the Saints. We got 2 running backs that can definitely light us up like that. And we just got to figure something out so that way we can maybe have a chance against them.
I don't even think we should win that game. I don't think we should win any more of the games. I mean, we have the Saints and the Lions coming up.
Yeah.
Right.
They're both away games. Right now, for us to statistically even get into the playoffs, we would need the Cardinals to lose out of the season. And right now, they're beating the Eagles 26. I don't see the Cardinals losing to the Eagles this evening, even with the game being as tight as it is right now. I just don't see that happening. So,
and if they do, if the Eagles do find a way to beat them, we still need more help in we need the Bears to lose more games. We need, it's just a lot of things that need to go wrong for other teams and right for us. And it's just at this point.
At this point, it's out of our hands.
It's out of our hands.
We got to start winning for that to start worrying about other teams losing, though.
Exactly.
I'm looking forward to next year. That's what I'm saying right now. I don't think that this team currently is in a state to make a deep playoff run. If we make it to the playoffs, we're going to lose in the first round, probably.
Unless it's the Saints.
This defense line is a one-faceted thing. They are the most bipolar offensive line I've ever seen in the history of the NFL. They're amazing. They're a top 10 run block offensive line, and they're a bottom 5 pass block offensive line. It's just I just at this current state, I think we should, settle our losses and let's go ahead and look into next year and look into getting more assets and dealing with the cap issues that we have.
Well, speaking of the future, we already kind of touched on the players and position groups that we think kind of had their highs this game and definitely had a lot of lows this game. But what do we think?
Okay, Isaac, before we press on, I do just want to add to that segment of the player highs and lows. I just want to highlight Conklin. Kind of coming out of nowhere this game, but just showing that great pass block potential as well as having a future as a main receiving tight end that we're going to need, because as much as I love Rudy, he's got maybe 1 maybe 2 more years, but he's already been on the downward trend as is anyways. So having that reassurance, we already know Irv Smith is a stud in that regard when he's healthy. So just having that secondary ability in Conklin too is reassuring and very hopeful for the future.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'll also point out, Jefferson had another great game. Him showing off his strong hands. The dude just doesn't drop much. And another person that I'll shout out quick is, Dan Bailey. He made his field goals today.
Told you.
So, way to bounce back. I think it's tough to bounce back from that kind of a performance, and he did it.
We set him up in a good situation. I feel like a good, we didn't give him 40-yard field goal kicks. They were 27 and 28. So they were chip shots, but he definitely needed that for his confidence.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. That is
Do we
definitely
think that
high point of the
do we think that Coach Zimmer talked to him during this past week? And
well, Zimmer came out and he said he talked to him. He had a good week in practice, so they were going to stick with him. And they just signed another kicker on the practice squad from the Jets.
Yeah.
Don't recall his name, but
so that had to have been a play as far as motivation's concerned with getting Bailey to kind of open his eyes.
I have a couple more things to add from this past game before we move on. One, I just want to say, going back to how our defense kind of sucked, Chris Jones is terrible. He's the one who I saw miss a bunch of tackles. He blew a bunch of coverages. He sucks. He's
the same player that gave up that long Tony Pollard run against the Dallas Cowboys, where he didn't even look like he tried to make a tackle on Tony Pollard.
He just stood there and was like, oh, bye.
And he did it again today. And he did it multiple times again today.
Terrible.
Is that the same corner that jumped over the Bears player and landed on Dantzler's calves too and took him out for a few plays?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I can't remember who that was, but I know what you're talking about. I remember that play.
I can't remember who it was.
I'll have to go back in the film and rewatch.
And one more thing is what happened, we aren't doing play action nearly as much as we used to, and that we used to be so good at that, and we just stopped doing it. What happened?
That's definitely a surprise because I definitely, when we were talking about the fourth down failure from earlier, the last play of the game, why we didn't, I think we wholeheartedly should have just committed to the run, have Madison acting as our fullback, and then just punch it up the middle. But B, if we didn't, if they weren't comfortable doing that, then shit, yeah. Why did we not do a play action pass? Why that was not in the play call in the script is beyond me because you're 100% right. Like, that was one thing the Vikings were damn good at because it was a real threat. It's not like we had some, pussy running back up front. Like we got Dalvin Cook, so if we're faking a run, it very well could be a run play. So
Exactly.
Part of that, I think, is Gary Kubiak. I mean, he's known for being kind of a Zimmer, perfectly falls into Zimmer's line of coaching. We're gonna run first. We're gonna run it up in your face, and we're gonna see what your team's made of.
Very old school.
And I think we missed that a lot with Stefanski. I think if we would have kept Stefanski, he'd be our coach next year. But unfortunately, he's doing his thing with the Browns, and he's making
up for coach of the year too.
It's working.
Quarterback in the NFL right now. So.
If you get the Browns through the playoffs, you deserve coach of the year 10 out of 10 times.
Without Odell too.
True.
They do better without Odell. He's out of there. He's gone. He's never gonna put a Browns jersey on again.
All right, I'm going to get into the guy that we're not really talking about. We talked about Dalvin. We talked about Jefferson. I think that Brian O'Neill had a pretty good game. He was the only bright spot on the offensive line. He went head-on-head with Khalil Mack most of the game, and Khalil Mack had a pretty quiet game overall. So, kudos to Brian O'Neill. The other guys you made, let's see here. What are their names? Akeem Hicks had a great game, just disrupting everything inside. And a couple other tackles. Jenkins, don't know who he is, but he had a great game. Kudos to him. And then their other defensive tackle, 98, had a really good game too. So that interior of the offensive line needs work, and we definitely need to address that. Dozier sucks. He had an awful game. Ezra is not he's not a guard. He's a tackle. He can't deal with the bull rush. So I really don't. I mean, we really need to address that in the offseason.
Once again, year after year, the O-line needs work. Where are the odds?
The first time, I think the defensive line needs a ton of work too.
Moving forward, though, let's start talking about this next game here against the Saints, who tonight watched a little bit of Drew Brees. He looks lost, has no idea what he's doing. That football field started 0 for 6. Looks terrified to be back there. Do we think the Vikings have a chance down in New Orleans on Christmas Day? Justin or Michael?
I don't know. That's tough because you're right. Drew Brees the game's going on right now as we're talking, and he looks out of his element. But, they're still a 10-3 team, and I don't think we can pull it off. And I don't think we should pull it off, as Mitch was saying earlier.
The Vikings are very back and forth. So it's hard to predict.
We started the season 1-5, right? And then we started winning football games coming out of that bye week. We beat the Packers. That was a great week. We were like, oh, we can get things on the roll maybe. It was good to beat the Packers, and if that's the best thing we can get for the season, good. We beat the Packers 1 out of 1 game. So, it's just why we win a hot streak and just get our hopes up and then start losing like we are to, and making it close with terrible teams. It's baffling, honestly, and it's just, I don't know. You guys can touch on it a little more. I'm just really pissed off right now.
That's the thing. The Vikings have a notorious behavior of being able to play up to high tier teams and perform well and have a great game, and then they have that Achilles heel of when they play a bad team. I think it gets in their heads in the locker room, whatever you will, in their group me team chats, talking shit, whatever have you. And they just play down to their level. We saw it with the Bears today. We gave them almost 400 total yards of offense. Like, no chance in hell that should be a factor. So, yeah, it's just extremely frustrating. And looking forward to next game, I don't think we should beat New Orleans, but at the same token, it very well could be one of those games where Kirk Cousins throws for 350 yards and Justin Jefferson gets, racks up 2 touchdowns, or maybe Thielen on the other hand, one of them has a two or maybe 3 reception touchdown game, and we throw up 35 points and beat them, by 2 scores or something. So, I mean, I think there's a chance we beat New Orleans, but whether we do or not, I mean, that's up to the Vikings. And then, when we play Detroit, then there's a game where we could very well play down and then just get absolutely rolled by AP in Detroit. So who knows?
Definitely.
My opinion would be our biggest issue is definitely the run game, like I said earlier, because ever since Drew Brees got injured this season and even last season, he hasn't been playing like himself. He's been below average, and so if we can stop the run game and have to make them have to rely on throwing the ball, we might have a better chance, because he hasn't been doing well. Like right now against the Chiefs, he's 7 of 20 in the third quarter. And that's not
Yikes.
what you expect out of a veteran quarterback like Drew Brees, where he's regarded as one of the best to play. And I mean, he is, but he's definitely losing his edge really quickly.
Let me ask you this, guys. Do you think Eric Kendricks, if healthy, he's not going to be 100% next week because he still has that lingering calf issue. If he's 90%, do you think we should let him play? And if I'm the Wolves and I'm Spielman, I'm saying let's just sit out Kendricks rest of the year, get him 100% next year. So
shut her down.
I'd say no as well. That'd be the smartest play, because it's just at this point there's too many factors out of our control to guarantee any sort of playoff run. So at this point, just take the safer play and save your players while you can, and just start looking forward to next year. As painful as it is to say every year, there's always next year. I mean, yeah, it is what it is.
I'd say if it comes down to week 17 and we do still have a chance and need a win, and he's like 98%, I say bring him in if there's a chance that we can get in the playoffs. But if we don't win next week, or if the Cardinals win today, I say don't play him at all.
No.
Does anyone know? I'm not familiar with the Saints' defense. Are they good at defense?
I mean, they're playing the Chiefs right now, which is kind of
that's
it's not a good sample right there.
True.
I mean, with Cameron Jordan, and they have a decent secondary, but it's more of a, I don't know.
They've got a great front four. Their linebacker core is wishy-washy. They decide when and where they want to show up at, and their secondary is also one of those things where they either have a fantastic game and hold a receiver to, two catches for 20 yards, or they let them run away with it for 12 receptions on 120 yards.
Well, just looking at all their past scores, it doesn't look like they've allowed any more than 24 points, at least since the October. And like a notable one is they held the Buccaneers to 3 points. So, I mean,
Depends on the week.
I don't think they're terrible by looking at scores, at least. I don't know how much that says, but.
Well, speaking of scores, let's do our predictions.
Okay.
Who wants to start her off? Noah.
Yeah, we're starting, in New Orleans next week. So on Christmas Day, though, maybe a Christmas miracle is going to happen. I'm thinking 27-21 New Orleans, unfortunately. I think that Kirk will have another game. I think Justin Jefferson will have another game. I'm hoping Dalvin's going to have another game. I need him in my fantasy football. So prayers up right there. 27-21 New Orleans.
I'll go. I think I'm going to pick New Orleans as well to win. I think I'm going to go a little higher. I think Drew Brees might get a little bit more groove. I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to be amazing, but I think it's going to be 17-28, New Orleans.
Yep.
I'm gonna
Too many
go.
offensive weapons.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna go. Drew Brees is gonna have a comeback game because the defensive line for the Vikings to give him 5 seconds in the pocket every time he throws. So I'm gonna give him. I'm gonna say he's gonna have 3 touchdowns passing, and then I'm gonna say the Saints are gonna win this 38-24.
I'm going to say it's going to be more of a shootout. I'm going to go with the Saints still winning as well, and have that be about 45-35 win for the Saints.
Devin?
Yeah, so I definitely see the shootout potential, and I just have this feeling in my gut that this is going to be one of those games where Kirk Cousins just shows up and Thielen and Jefferson just have a game. That being said, I mean, the Saints still have a notable defense when they show up. And if we do end up throwing in Kendricks in the mix, I think our defense with that confidence booster has a chance of showing up as well. So I actually feel like this is one of those games where the Vikings are going to pull out a surprise dub. And it's going to end up going down to be 28-20.
Hey, well, there's our first Vikings win prediction right there. I've been sitting here thinking I'm going to say 32-17 Saints, but I'm going to flip it. We're going to say 38-35 Minnesota Vikings. Dan Bailey kicks a 54-yard field goal as time expires to win the game. Christmas Day miracle. Take it to Vegas.
That'd be nice.
All right. So, Justin, you have all those written down there? Or
Yep.
will you later when you listen? All right.
We'll look back next week and see who's the smartest one here.
And if they lose next week, you know what that comes for the audience? It's going to be drafts out the door right here. Let's go.
The way too early mock drafts are starting early.
Oh, boy. I can't wait for that.
I think
All right.
coming up.
Well, thank you, everyone, for all 76 of our YouTube viewers in the past 4 days. Stick with us. The numbers will keep rising. This has been the Land of 10,000 Tears with the boys.